So
did you discuss that with my agent, Tom? My agent's now, the price has gone up to the roof now.
Okay, well, here's the thing. The students that can't be here are going to watch it for free. So I'll give you a rundown.
You get to talk to I get my guy to talk to your guy.
Yep. And my guy lives in South Philly, works for the mob. So he's a tough one.
Exactly.
Well, all right, Colin, take it away.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Tom. And thanks everybody here for turning up on time and actually taking time out to listen to me today. As it did actually happen that Tom did reach out to me on Twitter. I did reply, and you'll understand hopefully at the end of this why it's going to be a bit of fun. And I really want to say thanks very much for taking the time out to be on the call. Do keep your cameras on. I've got a setup here, which is I'm looking at you guys on the screen, and I have my deck on the screen here in front of me, obviously, but I also have it here as well. So if I turn it away, it's not because I'm updating my Twitter feed or catching up with what's on television here at 8 o'clock in Dublin. I am actually going, what am I saying next? Okay, so I'm going to give you I'll give you the rules of the road in a second. Let me just tell you about who I am and that I'm not a complete charlatan. So I'm a career marketer with an MBA. I've worked, and I'll tell you a little bit about this later, I've worked in the UK, Australia, Asia. I'm from Ireland. I'm broadcasting live and direct from Dublin, Ireland, but most of my work is international. Okay, I don't do anything really that much in Ireland except go to the pub when the pubs are open because we're still on lockdown. Okay. So one of the things I've done is I am a writer for Marketing Week magazine, which is probably one of the world's best known marketing magazines. I've been a columnist for 5 years. And you'll see on the right, there's a very cheesy photo of me pointing. Now, one of the things we're going to do, you have to do three things for me on this call, okay? And here's the three things. One is keep your screen on. Number two, don't fall asleep. Okay, no, I know you're not going to fall asleep. You're going to send questions in either by message or keep them to the end. I don't really mind. And number three, at the end, I'm going to get to take a photo of you guys on the screen, okay? And you see this cheesy photo with the pointy finger? Well, that's what we're going to do, okay? Now, in this cheesy photo with the pointy finger, there are three of the best marketing brains in the world at the conference I set up called DMX Dublin. So on the left, we have Jenny Romaniuk, who's the author of Distinctive Brand Assets from South Australia, who's a really lovely person. Second on the left is yours truly. Then we've got JP Castellan on the right, and we got Weaver Schneiders from Holland. So Sweden, South Australia, Ireland, and Holland. And they're some of the smartest people I've ever met, literally some of the smartest people I've ever met. And been very lucky. JP Castellan asked me to write the foreword to his new manifesto. If you do get to read a manifesto, don't worry if your brain is melting and coming out your ears. It is for most people. That tends to be the problem for you. As you can see, I've got I do a lot of workshops. I do a lot of teaching. And I do a lot of classes alone. The last few days I've done 6 hours. I spend my own money on e-commerce businesses. What else do we do? I don't know. Anyway, I'm in Dublin, so I tend to speak very fast. So hopefully be able to kind of follow what I'm saying. And on top of that, I wrote this book called The E-commerce Best Practice Guide. You can't see it because the camera's a bit weird. Anyway, it's called The E-commerce Best Practice Guide for e-consultancy. I'm just currently doing that for marketplaces as well. So we have the rule. The rule is ask me anything and I can do the same. So sometimes, depending if I'm in a bad humor, I pick on people. So if I go and say, Elsa, give me a question, I'm not really picking on you. It's just I kind of got bored, listened to myself, and I wanted some engagement. But if you want to ask a question, stop and shout at me. I've got no shame, in case you haven't noticed already. So let's get into it. And I'm terribly jealous of Caitlin sitting outside with her sunglasses. You look like something from the Matrix there, busy going, assessing what's going on in my mind. Now, here we go. Let's get into it. I am talking to you about, first of all, three different things. What I learned from teaching marketers that are directly relevant to you. What I learned from my career that you can use in your career. And number three, what you should do with your career and how to get a great job. Do you all want to learn that? No thumbs up? No, we're not getting any thumbs up. You don't want to learn that.
Thumbs
okay,
up,
you don't want to learn that. Okay, great. Okay. I thought you Americans were all like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, great. Let's go.
They're a little shy to start out, but they get better.
A little shy. So one of the things I learned is over the years is even though people might have, got a great education background and be working in these great jobs, we get so involved in our day jobs that we kind of forget the strategy. We're so deep inside it that we forget the thing that we're actually doing. And so one of the things you kind of have to be able to do is go between the detail and the strategy, and the detail and the strategy. And it's kind of an error I made over the years as well, is where it'd be like, the thing that I'm doing is the most important thing. And what I've done over the last few years, and I'm talking like as a person who's experienced, but I still forget, I kind of have this visualization in my mind the whole time. And I just kind of now always go and say, I have this marketing strategy framework in my mind, and it's how I think about marketing in any context. It's just basically a marketing plan on a screen. You've got your strategy, you've got your objectives, you've got who your target market's going to be, what segments you're going to go after, how you're going to position against that, what the product or service is, which could be the brand, could be the design, could be anything. Or then how are you going to, let me read my writing here because I forget sometimes. Oh yeah, the channel that you're going to go after, and then the promotion. Now I'm going to come back to this point. So this is important. Hold that note, promotion, and then we execute. And the execution drives new customers, gets conversion, or maybe you get to retain a customer. So if you've read Philip Kotler, any of your guidebooks, sorry, not guidebooks, any of your school books on marketing, they're essentially encapsulated in this visual. What's the strategy? What's the product? What are segments? What are we going to package together? And then how do we execute? Now, what I want to point out to you is when you start out your career, you're really all about the execution. You'll be in the execution phase. You might be working in a digital marketing role, or you might be working with promos. That's fine. That's no problem. The challenge, however, is in marketing, most of the problems you get with your marketing strategy are upstream, but all the conversation is downstream. So upstream, you've got a problem that you're targeting the wrong segment. You don't know what your positioning is. You're not sure who your target market is, but we talk in terms of the promotion bit all the time. So I go to meetings with very senior people across the globe, and they're talking about what this campaign is doing. They're doing this digital marketing campaign, but their problem is upstream. So even for experienced people, and including me, it's like we need to go and get baptized every day by the Pope or whatever the Pope does. You're blessed by the Pope every day, okay? We just need to keep rewinding and reminding ourselves where we fit in the overall picture. So even for the most experienced people, we make this error. Always go, where is the map in relation to strategy? What are we trying to do? And the other thing is we need to forget your opinions. Now, this is the only, this is not a political segment, this is a bit of fun, okay? But I want to kind of use this as an example, okay? So one of the things that we do, this is not to do with Donald Trump, I just thought it was a kind of great visual, okay? One of the things that we do as human beings, we sort of rely on our own behaviors and tastes, and we think that's who other people are. So on my screen in front of me, I've got Elizabeth. And so let's say Elizabeth is into, and I'm going to make this up. Elizabeth is into Philadelphia cheese. What do they call them? Cheese, not cheeseburgers. What do they call cheese? I've forgotten what the name of it is. Anyway, you know it.
Steaks.
Cheesesteaks. Yeah, cheesesteaks. Elizabeth is from Philadelphia, and she only eats cheesesteaks for breakfast and for lunch and for dinner. Okay. And imagine she went and met me and said, Colin, how come you don't eat cheesesteaks? I eat cheesesteaks. I'm a winner, you're a loser, everybody must eat cheesesteaks, okay? Now, it's obviously a totally moronic example, okay? But this is actually what we do. We walk around the world going, hey, I'm on Instagram, therefore everybody is on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, therefore everybody's on Twitter. And as I get in my classes, I don't use email, therefore nobody uses email. And I had this as recently as last night. A marketing director reached out to me going, oh, Colin, your email marketing class really convinced me. And I was looking at them going, how did you get to be a marketing director if you can't work out that email is the machine on which the wheels of industry run? Yeah. So one thing I want you to do is, this is how to be a really good marketer, is don't take your perspectives on the world as the way the rest of the world is. Don't take your perspective on the way the world is, even in Philadelphia. Yeah, it's just, and we fight this all the time. And the ridiculous example I use is me, okay? Just like I picked on poor Elizabeth there on the cheesesteaks, okay? I'm a big car fan. I love cars, okay? Automobiles, I love them, okay? Now, I actually cycle everywhere. I live in a small city, I can cycle everywhere, but I love cars. I'm nuts, okay? None of these cars really work that well, the big rust heaps, but I love them, okay? And I had this particular type of brand, it's called an MG. They're a sports car brand, okay? And imagine if I met Tom. I was like, out for a beer, Tom. I said, Tom, I got 4 cars, Tom. How come you don't have 4 cars? And he'd look at me and go, you're a lunatic, Colin. And he'd be right, yeah? And this is what we do. We go and make believe that our worldview and how things are is how it is. And Twitter is infested with this, and Instagram is infested. I want you to be objective. I want you to be objective and observe yourself when you're kicking in with your own opinions. Cool? Now, the other thing people need to do, and this is a toughie, this is a real toughie, marketing effectiveness. Now, marketing effectiveness is something very new, as in, it's not new at all. People always want their marketing to be effective. But the readings and the content and the data and the insight has really come center stage in the last 8 to 10 years. And honestly, it is the best time ever to be a marketer. In the past, I would have been blundering around in the dark going, I think this is a good idea, but I don't have the data for it. And I'm going to give you some examples of this. But these 3 books, these 3 things here. First of all, Building Distinctive Assets by Jenny Romaniuk. How Brands Grow by Byron Sharp. Those 2 are essentially the cornerstone of marketing in the future. Now, they're not fun reads. This is not a John Grisham novel we're looking at here, okay? And what I would suggest is you go and search on the interweb for synopses of this book, and you look for presentations from Jenny and so on, because actually their concepts are very straightforward. They just kind of wrap them up in this kind of, university speak. And then the other thing that's happened is there's 2 gentlemen called, well, it's not gentlemen, there's a gang of them, but the guys who are most famous for it are Les Binet and Peter Field. Les Binet and Peter Field. And if you did nothing other than understand the ramifications of what they talk about, you would be better than 95% of all marketers in the US and probably 98% of all marketers in the world. The concepts that they use are very straightforward, but very hard to do. And they have 2 or 3 concepts that I'm going to talk about, and I want you to embed them in your mind because you see it, but you just don't realize you're seeing it. To build brands, to build growth, you need to have mental, physical, and to a certain extent now, digital availability. Now, what is mental availability? It's pretty easy to define. The thing comes to mind when you think of that category. And I'm going to ask a question to everybody here. What comes to mind when I say red Italian sports cars? Any answers?
Ferrari.
Exactly. Is there a person in the world who will not answer the word Ferrari to red Italian sports cars? No. They own the concept, the mental availability of those 3 words. In fact, if I said Italian sports cars, you probably would have said Ferrari. And if I say, I'm trying to think of something, Irish beer, what would be a word that comes to mind?
Guinness.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Mental availability. It was the first thing that came to mind. That's called brand salience. Now, I didn't pay $10 in advance to Tom to bribe all you to come with those answers. You already had them in your head. So the probability of a consumer noticing, recognizing, and thinking of your brand in a buying situation, sometimes called brand salience. Make your brand easy to come around and talk about. Now, this is the core thinking you need to do. Then you can come and say, okay, well, how we're going to build mental availability is by building what are called fame strategies. We're going to build fame and use PR or whatever. Or we're going to build a sponsorship thing. We're going to sponsor NASCAR or sponsor the Super Bowl, whatever, it doesn't matter. What happens is I meet people and they say, I know, Colin, here's what it is. I'm going to run naked down Fifth Avenue with like our website address on my chest. That's what's going to work. Okay. I mean, and I hear grown men and women say this sort of stuff, and I'm looking at them going, what am I doing here in this meeting with you? Because they haven't worked out. If they had said to me, what we need to do is build mental availability. What we need to do is therefore build a PR strategy that's going to go onto social media because everybody's going to take pictures of it. It's going to make us famous. And I think the tool for us to do that is for me to run down naked down Fifth Avenue or on Broadway with my website on it. Instead, what we spend all our time is thinking about crazy stunts. I don't care about crazy stunts. Now, the second part of this is physical availability, which is pretty easy. I gotta be able to find it. Surprise, surprise. Now, that might sound like the bleeding obvious, as I might say in Ireland. You would be amazed. So I have been in situations, my very first job, about 25 years ago. So my boss said, we've just bought this company who makes jams and spreads, marmalades, like Schmuckers. And they said, Colin, will you go out and find out what we bought? So they gave me the keys to this little blue truck, and I had to drive around to Ireland, going into shops going, hey, have you got our stuff? Okay. And my then boss, who's now quite a famous person in Ireland, she's chief exec of this company and that company. So she's quite well known. And she's pretty smart. And I said to her, and she's like having this meeting with me, and she says, Colin, you know, why are sales down this month? Is it the taste? You know, is it the label? Can they not read the label? Is there something wrong with the packaging, Colin? And I was like, Gina, no, they can't find it in the shop. Yeah. And she's like, no, Colin, it's definitely something else. We need to organize a new tasting and change the recipe. And I was like, no, they can't find it in the shop. That's it. Yeah. That's physical availability. With the quickest ways of marketing, and one of the best jobs to do is a merchandising job where you drive around stores. Because I learned what happens on the front line is what matters. If they don't have it in the shop and there's no stock, you don't get any sales. That never crosses the mind of people. Then, of course, digital availability, which is where we are on the phone and we can find it through search. That is a very new concept over the last 10 years, obviously, where now people can buy and purchase online. It wasn't really available 15 years ago. Your goal is always to improve mental, physical, and digital availability. That's what effectiveness is about at its core. Cool? Right. So this is the 10 elements of an effective marketing campaign, and I'll wrap up my discussion on effectiveness in one fell swoop. Here is how you make an effective marketing campaign. And I think Tom should put this on your next exam question and go and say, what are the 10 elements of an effective marketing campaign? Because I'm about to ruin your lives, okay? So the first thing is diagnosis. Diagnose the challenge. Now, diagnosis is the bit that people, remember I was saying at the top of that marketing plan thing, diagnosis is the thing that people are quite lazy on. Remember I talked about subjectivity. Remember my crazy story about I've got an MG, how come you don't have an MG? That's the same thing. We go for the easy answers. Diagnosis is hard. Working out the problem is hard. It requires a lot of things. Otherwise you end up being like my boss going, the problem is this, and not listening to the point is the problem is the customer can't find the goddamn stuff. Then create a clear objective grounded in reality. Ensure what I call distinctive positioning. Now you're going to learn a lot of the marketing stuff about differentiation. And one of the books I know Tom gave you in the list of marketing books is called Position by Al Riesentraut. I strongly recommend you read that book. Okay, it's one of the greatest marketing books ever. However, there are people who are counter to that and say, positioning is now no longer the only thing. The thing that matters is being distinctive. And I can create distinctiveness examples to you really easy. What color is a Coca-Cola can?
Red.
Red.
What color is a Pepsi can? Nobody knows what Pepsi is?
Blue.
What color is a 7-Up can?
Green.
Green. Green.
Great. What's going on there, guys? This is a distinctiveness. This is mental availability in action. I walk into the shop, I shortcut the brain's thinking process by having red, green, and blue. Yep. What do BMW do with their crazy kidney grille on the front of their car? What Audi do with their 4 little circles? Rolls-Royce do with the big grille. It's all in the name of creating distinctiveness. Now, what you want to do is be long-term and ideally mass marketing as much as possible. I have a caveat on that. Small brands cannot necessarily afford to do mass market branding, but social media, digital marketing does enable you to do that. But in an ideal world with a big brand, it's long-term. If you can, commit for the long term, and the performance marketing, Google AdWords, Facebook advertising, they'll deliver results in the short term. But you're distinctive. You don't be like Coca-Cola changing the recipe. You stick with the distinctive assets. And ideally, you have very good creative. So hence my cheesy story about running naked down Broadway, because people run straight to this creative and go, that's going to be solving the problem. And I always say, well, there's 6 steps before running naked down Broadway. We talked about mental physical availability and ideally multiple channels. So one of the things that happens again is people go and say, we're going to do this on Instagram. It's on Snapchat. And it's like, no. Build out multiple channels. And ideally you invest more than your competitors in an ideal world if you have the money to do so. So that is the 10 elements of an effective marketing campaign. Now I want to move to something that appeals to us all, and one of the issues for us all here is we need to, this is both career advice and a whole host of other things all coming together. You need to communicate in the language of business. I'm actually doing a coaching thing with somebody right now, and she's really lovely, and she works for the kind of equivalent of the Port Authority in Dublin. And she showed me the reports she's given to the chief exec. And I was like, you're talking about like Facebook reaches and likes and all the rest of it. I was like, this guy's the chief exec of the port. He doesn't care about that sort of stuff. You need to talk to him in the language of business. So what I've been communicating with her is talk about profits, revenue, margin, trying to bring her activities directly to profits, revenue, margin, and so on. She was giving this gentleman, or chief exec, a 25-page report, which even I couldn't understand. So you've got to use the language of business and start early. I mean, it's tough starting out in your career, like, I'm just working on this tiny little thing. But always be asking your boss, going, how does this link through what our objectives are? And this is what I've been teaching her, going, if you understand the company's strategic objectives, speak in that language. Speak in that language. There's a subset within this, I'd just go and say, there's an element of persuasion. And I'm going to talk about persuasion later. And so remind me if I don't bring the words persuasion up. By the way, I'm sure some of you are making comments, but because it's Zoom, I can't see them and they're not coming up. Let me just go and see, can I find it there? Hold on a second. Here we go. Chat.
No, there's only one.
There's only one chat. They're just saying how incredibly good looking I am. So that
Yes.
wouldn't say, oh, okay, great, no problem.
No, well, you were asked how multiple channels, when using multiple channels, are you marketing the same message? Does the message change?
Remember we said consistency? Yeah. So certain times the channel may drive the message. So if it's something you might be doing a point of sale in a supermarket, it may be deal driven. So the message might be different compared to, say, being on television. It might be different to being on the social channel. You will make your judgment at the time. You definitely will have different forms of creative to fit their particular context. But no, as a general rule, I'd be assuming the same deal, the same communication across all channels. But it depends if it's a promo. Great question. Right, what am I putting up here now? My screen has just gone. Yeah, here we go. Move away here. Oh, yeah, got it. Okay, now I can see it. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I can see it now. Okay, now I can see the questions. Great. Okay, now understand that we were permanently. So now I'm kind of shifting gear here for a second, and this is kind of a fun thing. Okay, you guys are you know, in university, and you're like, oh, I'm studying. And if you're anything like me, when I was studying, I was like, as soon as I leave this joint, I'm never studying again. It's over. I never want to do another exam again. Now I went on and did a master's, 2 sets of masters, so I was lying to myself. But let's just go back here. We are permanently learning. Now, why are we permanently learning? This here is a copy of the first still available print ad. And it's actually an ad in for the William Caxton Bible, written in Old English. And so it's called the William Caxton Bible. That was the first point where they found an ad. Now, there have been some stores, outside stores, back as far as the Greeks and the Romans, even the Sumerians. But this is an ad in print. So we call that the first ever ad. And nothing happened for hundreds of years with marketing communications. There wasn't even marketing. There was just ads. So we had the William Caxton in 1472. Then 2 centuries later, we actually had proper newspapers with ads. 2 centuries later, we had ads in magazines, because magazines then came to the fore. And then very quickly, particularly in the US, catalogs came through. Catalogs were very big in the mid 19th century. And then we have to wait another, say, 5-10 years before billboards come out. And then we have another 40-50 years, and then radio comes out as another channel. And then we've got TV advertising in the late 40s, and that really takes off properly in the 50s and 60s. So if we look at this, actually probably till the time I started my career, all I really had to know was TV, radio, billboards, catalogs, magazine, in terms of advertising channels, for the most part. Direct mail, you could put in there as well. I kind of had to know those. Life is cushy. Then I go for my Mad Men 3 martini lunch, if only, okay? And we have this happening in 500 years. Then in the last 10 to 15 years, we've got Google AdWords, Instagram advertising, Snapchat advertising, email marketing for 20 years, TikTok advertising the last couple of years, Facebook advertising really only came through in 2013. What I'm saying, guys, is there is an explosion in advertising channels. But there's actually an explosion in marketing technology. Has anybody seen this visual before? Do you know this visual, guys? Yes, no, maybe, on board. No, what, have you seen it before? Okay, cool. So this is called the Marketing Technology Landscape, done by a great guy called Scott Brinker. Now, I'm going to be asking, there's 8,000 on this. I'm going to be asking questions on every one of these by the end of the class. So I'm expecting you to be an expert in each one of these individual logos here, okay? So what happened was Scott is working, if you look at the bottom right, it's a bit small, but basically Scott kind of drew up this visual, and he's a cool guy. He works for HubSpot, and very nice guy. And he started going, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to map out all these marketing technologies out there. And you'll see, and it's in tiny writing, so my eyesight's killing me on this one. He figures there's around 950 marketing technology solutions in 2014. Now, I remember the first one was in 2012. I think he had 150 marketing technology pieces of technology. Now he's showing 8,000. So we've gone from almost 0 in 2010 to now there's 8,000 different pieces of counted marketing technologies out there. So it's basically gone insane, guys. We've gone from William Caxton with his Bible in 1472 to 8,000 pieces of technologies in the last 10 years. I don't know about you, but that's a lot. And that's a lot to know of. Now, it's great news from a couple of perspectives. One is the digitization of marketing is going to give us all amazing job opportunities. I wish I had all that opportunity when I left school. I left university, whatever it was, 25 years ago. Excuse me. So what I'm saying is this stuff is changing so fast. It's very, very hard to keep on top of it. Don't be beating yourself up. This is going to lead to a conversation on skills later. But Kevin Kelly's written this great book, and he's got this quote. He said, technological life in the future will be a series of endless upgrades. No matter how long you've been using a tool, endless upgrades make you into a newbie. All of us will be endless newbies, keeping up with important technologies that will dominate life that have not yet been invented. So what I'm saying to you guys is, you'll finish university. What I want you to tune into this idea is that don't be a lazy guy like me who didn't read a book then for another 5 years. Yeah. Think in terms of how I'm going to be continuously upgrading my skills, because there's always going to be new technologies. And the amount of people I meet in my classes who they've never seen this marketing technology super graphic, they've got 20 years marketing career experience, and they're just in denial. What I'd say to you is, the denial may be a river in Africa, but you shouldn't be in denial, okay? That's that piece. That's what I've learned over the last 10 years of teaching. People are not as well tuned into how the world is operating, and you're going to avoid all of that. Permanently learning, you're communicating the language of business, study marketing effectiveness, forget your own opinions, and always drive your work through strategy. Now we're going to move to understanding the world, what you are going to do with your career based on the mistakes I've made. Don't do some of the things that I did, and I'll touch on those, but I'm going to give you a roadmap for going for what you want, and then I'm going to show you how to do it later, okay? But I can remember, by the way, just as an aside, just when I was finishing up my final year, we had some people come in externally, but no marketing folks ever came in. And eventually one marketing guy came in. His name happened to be the same name as my Colin. And he spoke to us, and I still remember everything that he said. And this is kind of my version of that all those years later. I want you to remember this, because what I'm telling you is going to last you for 20, 25 years. It's really going to work. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm from Ireland. I graduated in the late 80s. I started off driving a van, delivering jams and marmalades. I was a humble marketing assistant. At the age of 23, 24, I decided to leave Ireland and my family, and I emigrated to Australia. I had $200 and I knew one person. I stayed in Australia for 8 years, and I got lucky through a variety of things. And I'll talk to you about getting lucky as well. And I worked in Australia, but through Australia, I ended up working in Japan, Hong Kong, Egypt, Singapore, and London, all by the age of 30. Okay, so in a very short period of time, I went from a dude just driving a van around to having all these incredible experiences. And it's a combination of right place, right time, everything, just things happening. I'm going to try and show you how to do that. Then when I came back to Australia, I got a job in the music business, and I worked in my dream job in the music business. So already by the age of 30, I had 2 dream jobs. Moved back to Ireland, and my folks were getting older, wanted to be in Ireland. I worked for a couple of tech firms, and there was a thing that happened. Can everybody hear me clearly? Yeah, you can hear me. There was a thing that happened. I remember the internet started getting big around 2000, the dot-com boom. And I thought, I'm going to hitch my career to that. I'm going to try and understand technology. Whilst everybody else around me was like, no, you got to get a job in financial services. And I was like, I think technology is going to be where it's at. It took a long-term bet. It was a 10-year bet, but it did pay off. Maybe an 8-year bet, but it did pay off. Did an MBA. I started working for airlines, and I started running e-commerce sites, and I ran $100 million e-commerce sites. And then over the last 5 years, I've been doing a lot of work with a company, CMO for a company that's owned by a Chinese company, so I could spend a lot of time in China. So I was a little bit organized in my thinking. I wanted to know, I said, I really got to understand China. I got offered this role. I took it because I need to understand China. And now I understand China. I didn't go and see myself as this little Dublin guy doing stuff in Dublin in this tiny market. I saw myself as an international person all the time. Okay. I am not particularly smart. I'm not particularly anything at all. I think that the only thing I've got for me is the gift of the gab. I can chat. But then everybody in Ireland can do that. So that's not really that much of a benefit either. Okay. So there's a few things I want to talk about on this topic. So what I would say to you is, as you're planning how you're leaving university, I want you to kind of believe that you should go for what you want. You just never know. In fact, if I could go back to myself, I would go and say to Colin, this stuff that you think is out of reach, it's actually totally possible. Now remember, I was a broke 21-year-old living at home with no future and no nothing. Nothing going for me. Nothing. Nothing. I'm not even that tall. I'm incredibly good looking, but I'm not even that tall. Yeah. And it all kind of happened. Why did it happen? Well, I took a risk. It was a bit of luck. And I finally developed some belief in it. So I actually wanted, at the age of 22, I wanted to work in the travel business. I wanted to work in the music business. And that came through. Then I wanted to work in the airline business. And that came through. Wanted to do an MBA, that came through. And every time I haven't been specific, it hasn't worked out. So try and be specific. Define the industries you want to work in and just go for it. It's just weird how things happen. If you want to move to Hollywood and work in the film business, do that. Yeah. You want to work internationally, do that. You will get it. You just have to kind of decide it. The problem is, and I'm even talking to myself at my age now, I'm kind of doing another different thing with my career. And I can even observe myself now going, what do I want to do next? So what happens the whole time in your career? Then what I want to say to you, and I'm specifically speaking to you as people in the US. This is a very specific thing. I don't have to say this to people who work in the UK as much or in Ireland as much. I still say it, but I'm going to be very specific. You should try and work internationally. You should try and work internationally. The biggest markets in the world are in Asia. A third of the world's population lives within, I think it's 6 hours flight of Singapore. No, half the world's population lives in a 6 hours flight of Singapore. The US is a big country, but it's a quarter of the population of India, and a quarter of the population of China. At the moment, Nigeria has 150 million people. It's bigger than Russia. Yeah. So I'm not advocating going to Nigeria or Russia, obviously. What I'm saying is get out of your comfort zone and get working internationally. Because the world, what happens is I work with American companies and I read American stuff, and I'm just sitting there going, this is just purely US centric. And they leave all this opportunity on the table. And I'm going to prove it to you by asking you a really difficult question and saying, what city is this? And I bet you none of you get the answer, but I'm going to try. Which city in the world is this? It's not the US, and it's not in Canada. And give me the country, guys. What country is this? And Tom, you're not allowed to answer. What country is this?
Somebody said Dubai. Is that right?
I'll give you some marks for Dubai. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it Saudi Arabia?
It's not Saudi, no. But some marks for that. It's good. Yeah. It's not Singapore. But a very good call there, guys. Yeah. One more chance, and then I'll tell you what it is. By the way, you actually know this town, but you don't know it. So that's the weird bit. You actually know this in 3 different ways, but you don't know it. I'll put you out of your misery. So it's a city called Chengdu, and it's in Western China. Okay. And it's at the foothills of the mountains in far west China. It's a 4-hour flight from Shanghai. okay? A long way. Shanghai has 23 million people. Chengdu has 16 million people. It's where they make iPads. Yeah, it's one of the factories for where Apple make iPads. Now, I've been to this place. The reason you will know this is for three reasons. One is it's where they make iPads. Number two, it's in a province called Sichuan province. So if you ever had a Chinese takeaway and a Chinese Sichuan meal, this is the origin of it. And the third reason you know it, and I know every single person knows this town for this reason, that's where pandas come from. So pandas come from Sichuan province, and there's actually a panda zoo, a kind of zoo kind of place in Chengdu. And I've been there, and there is this job, and the job is to pick up the baby pandas and cuddle them. And so that is the world's greatest job. I have seen the world's greatest job. Pick up baby pandas and cuddle them, okay? And if you want me to send a picture of this to you guys afterwards, you're not going to believe it. But the reason I'm saying this is 16 million people. This town has maybe 10 Tesla dealerships. The shopping center in the middle of the tower in the middle is a Lamborghini tower. As you drive the road, the factory, the Apple factory is so big, it takes 10 minutes to drive by. Yeah. The underground, the subway is spotless. It is incredibly safe. The food is amazing. It's a great place. Sure, it's in a police state. Yeah, I agree. But this is a very, very interesting place to visit. It was a place I would go to tomorrow. And people are really nice as well. And the food is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So that's an example of something there. Hong Kong is amazing. All these places you mentioned, Shanghai, Hong Kong, I've been to all these places. But what I'm saying, it's a big bad world, get out there. Right. I want you to forget your ego. If I could speak to myself, I would just go and say, Colin, your ego is out of control. You think you need to start at the top at age 21. That's wrong. If you get a job working in the post room, not that I believe there's post rooms anymore, do that. If you want to work in Hollywood and a guy offers you a job cleaning shoes, you do that. Yeah. You start at the bottom and be coachable. Yeah. It is totally counterintuitive. I used to go and say to myself, Colin, I've got this job and I've got this degree. I'm great. I should be recognized for amazingness. Yeah. No. If the job is, cleaning the boss's shoes, stilettos, do it. If you want to work in that industry, do it. This is what it takes. Don't be like an idiot like me who wanted to come in, coming in at a much higher level than what I thought it was. Now, the second thing is you will read a lot about marketing and you will read a lot about leadership. And it's all absolute rubbish, okay? 80% of stuff you will find on the internet about marketing is not very good, and it's written in biased context. The stuff you will read about leadership is really bad. The world is a little, harsher than we like to go and say, but that's okay. Leadership in these big firms is a little more Game of Thrones and a lot less, we're all being nice to each other. And that's okay. Just don't walk in naively thinking it's all going to be motherhood and apple pie. That's not how it is. You just got to be smart. That's all. Just got to be smart and just not believe the bullshit that you read on the internet about how leaders are changing and how that's all crap. That's all crap. That's not the real world. Okay. Now, one of the readings I've talked about before is a guy called, well, I'm not going to say, who's this guy here? Who's this guy on the picture? He looks like an old dude. Who is he? Anybody know? No? Well, have you heard the word Machiavelli? Have you heard the word Machiavelli? Yes, no? No? Yeah, great, okay. So Niccolo Machiavelli has written a book called The Prince. It was written in the 1470s in Florence. And it's regarded as the guidebook for, crazily ambitious leaders and stuff like that. But actually, that's not what the book was about. And he's always, the phrase Machiavellian is what's used. And I'm just using this so you can kind of remember the idea. But one of his particular points is, particularly as a person coming in, working for anybody, is don't be the sort of person who kind of thinks they know it all, and don't try to outshine the masters. So if you have a boss, and the boss in your new first job, second job, and the boss is saying, do X, Y, Z, do X, Y, Z. Yeah. Now that sounds kind of weird. You kind of course I would do that, Colin. Well, actually what's happening is a lot of people are going, if I say do X, Y, Z, they don't do X, Y, Z, or they don't do it to the best of their abilities. Now this sounds like I'm being patronizing. I'm not. It's much more common than you think. If you're working with somebody and they ask you to do something, you kind of should do it. Like I have a niece, okay, she's your age, she's 23 years old. And to try and get her to do something is just driving me bananas. I'm like, Cleo, will you just, if you just kind of do that, like it'll be fine. So just particularly in your first few jobs, just do what you're told and you'll be amazed at what you'll learn. Don't be like my niece who's just always go, no, I don't want to do that. Yeah. You'll find out very quickly why that is the case. And then my final point about you and your way to succeed in life is to understand opportunity. Now, I've put the definition of opportunity there. A time or set of circumstances that makes it possible to do something. Now, that sounds a bit of a weird thing for me to say. But what I say to people is they don't kind of see opportunities, and I'm including me when I say that. Tom saw an opportunity to reach out to me because he saw it on Twitter. What was it to lose? Nothing. Yeah. He had an opportunity mindset. So opportunity is about, it seems like it's something that's out there. Again, this is one of these things I'd like to have said to myself, Colin, you think opportunity is out there, and kind of it is, yeah? But you need to be ready. You need to have the right mindset in the first place. And I didn't have the right mindset. I was expecting you to come to me. So when I moved to Australia, I realized I had $200 in my back pocket and I was going to starve. So I better do something, yeah? And I wrote to all these companies personally and I phoned everybody. I think I applied to 300 jobs in 4 months and I met loads of people. I was hungry because it was that or starve. Once I was out of work living with my mother, I was like, I'm going to starve. I better do something, yeah? And so I created my own opportunity. I had the right mindset. And opportunity is about timing, but you've got to have the right ingredient, which is the right mindset. And I want to quote as my guide on this is Nicholas Nassim Taleb. And he's got this great concept called the Black Swan, and he talks specifically about this particular topic in the book. And he says, seize, and if you don't remember anything I've said in this whole class, I want you to remember this. Seize any opportunity or anything that looks like opportunity. They're rare, much rarer than you think. Many people do not realize they're getting a lucky break in life when they get it. If a big publisher, a big art dealer, a movie exec, or hotshot banker suggests an appointment to cancel anything you have planned, you may not see such a window open again. I wrote to these 300 people trying to look for a job when I was in Australia. I would physically drop the envelope in by hand myself. I would get get the bus out to 10 miles. I'd walk into the office. I'd talk to the secretary and say, can you make sure Mary gets this? Yes. And when they say yes, I'll phone them up. And when they say, yes, Colin, I'll meet you. I go, great. I dropped everything and I traveled the 2 hours to get them and meet them for 10 minutes and come back. I worked for a company in the middle of the UK, middle of England. It was a 2-hour train ride. I would get the 2-hour train ride down at a vast cost to me to meet people for 2 hours and then come back. That's how I got the Marketing Week writing opportunity, by accident. But I turned up. Yeah. So you folks are in Philadelphia, one of the most best cities in the US. You're a couple of hours away from one of the world's centers of marketing. There's no excuses, guys. I was living in a backwater in the middle of nowhere, Dublin, okay? If anybody goes and says, I'll meet you, you meet them, and you listen, and you take notes. You don't be an idiot like me, okay? Okay, that's that bit. Now we're going on to the final stretch. We have the final sort of 10 minutes, and we'll go from there. This is called creating a great career. I was talking about my career, what you can learn from this. Now I want to focus on the future in your career. Now, I'm going to remember this word, skills. There's two different types of ways of thinking about skills. There's what we call horizontal skills. Skills around marketing, understanding brands, getting that kind of marketing stuff. And then the skills like I can put an AdWords campaign together. I can write, put together, I can build an e-commerce site. I got specialist kind of technical skills. I can run one of those marketing technology things that we saw on the graph a few minutes ago. So what is marketing when it comes to getting a job? It's this marketing knowledge of sort of horizontal knowledge and specific knowledge. Horizontal knowledge and specific knowledge. When you're getting your first job, they are going to hire you for your hard skills. They're not hiring you for your general knowledge. There's plenty of general people out there. What are hard skills? Teachable and measurable abilities such as writing, selling, coding, or the ability to use computer programs. Now, I'm not saying you need to be a computer programmer, but you need to know a couple of these technologies out there. You need to know how to create an email campaign. You need to know how to create AdWords. You need to know about search engine optimization, how to create a Facebook campaign, how to write copywriting for a Facebook campaign. This is the skills that are in demand, and you've got to be able to prove it. Now, I know Tom is talking about having side hustles. The reason I fully back that up is in your first job, it's very difficult to prove to people that you've got the skills. The reason you can do that is by saying, I got the side hustle, and here's what happened. Side hustle is your resume. Your resume is interesting, but because we don't have much history in our resumes in our early 20s, the side hustle is the equivalent of that. And I want you to work on yourself and your side hustle as much as you work on your university stuff. So why am I saying that? Because we are going to talk about skills. And I'm going to create this crazy visual for you. What we are looking for in our careers is skills that are in demand. Why did I show you all that advertising stuff, the history of advertising? Basically, what I was telling you was the history of advertising, everybody knew all that stuff, but the new stuff, the 10,000 pieces of technology that's out there, that's all the stuff that's in demand. And I call this the shape of skills. Horizontal, the one on the left. That's a person who's okay at everything. Then there's the T-shaped person, who's good at a few things and expert in one topic. Then there's the pie-shaped person, good at a lot of things, but really expert on two things. And then there's a person who's just got one skill and clearly no personality. Yeah, they're a person who's, say, maybe a data scientist or computer coder in Java, and they don't know anything else. They don't even know how to have a shower. Yeah. So what you want is to start off becoming a T-shaped person. And a T-shaped person is a person who's got a wide breadth of basic knowledge across many overlapping disciplines, and ideally then deep knowledge and experience in one or a few domains. One or a few domains. So what I want you to do is to think through the idea of what you're learning with Tom, we're learning horizontal skills, marketing, brand, mental availability, marketing effectiveness. Cool. That's the opening gambit. It's like poker, table stakes. Then I want you to be able to go and say, I am becoming an expert in this, so that when you go out into the world, you will be able to go and say, you know what, I'm really good at all this of marketing, but you know, I'm a bloody expert at this topic. And let me show you, because I created this side hustle and I can prove it to you. Yeah. So I don't care if you set up an e-commerce shop selling socks or t-shirts, or you go onto Etsy and you sell pens. I don't care. I don't care what it is, guys. You do it so you can prove it to other people. I have a friend of mine in west of Ireland. She knitted these crazy masks, put them on Etsy, through the roof. Couldn't keep it, gave up the day job. Yeah. So let's tease that out a little bit more. What we want now, we're 3 minutes of finishing up here, guys, so don't panic, okay? I want you to think through this notion of what I call rare and valuable skills. And the notion of rare and valuable skills is from a guy called Colin Newport. Has anybody heard of Colin Newport here? Yeah? No? 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 Okay, I'm not judging. I'm judging for everybody here that you haven't heard of him, okay? Can I recommend that you go and buy this book and read this book, okay? I'm specifically speaking to you as students who are getting into the real world. And what he says is the first time I went and said, finally, somebody is getting it right. Because Cal goes and says, people talk about living your passions and being able to live in your passions. It's possible, but it's not a good bet. I'm a car fanatic, as I just talked to you earlier on, and I'm particularly a motor racing fanatic. Okay, the chances of me earning a living from motor racing is marginal because there's 100 people in the whole world who earn money from motor racing. It's like saying I want to become a professional tennis player and earn millions. There's 20 people in the world do that. Yeah, we all know who they are. So what we want to do is go and say, how do we combine this, what we're good at, what we're interested in, and create a niche? That requires rare and valuable skills. You've all done economics, I know you have. Basic economic theory says that if you want something that's rare and valuable, you need to have something rare and valuable to offer in return. It follows if you want a great job, you need something of great value to offer. So this is my point. You want to not just be a horizontal, yeah, good, yeah, Colin, yeah, no, I'm kind of good at this, yeah, I'm good at that, yeah. No, you want to be a domain expert in 1 or 2 areas. In fact, he goes and calls it out. He goes and says, what you want is a skill stack that you've acquired and combined them in a unique way that's almost personal to you. And this combination of skills is far more useful than the sum of each skill is. It's better to be very good at 4 things than average at 10 things. So let me explain that to you in a different way. I am an okay marketer. You know, I've had good results, bad results, but I'm okay. I'm good horizontally. I've run a lot of e-commerce websites. So I've got that T there, okay? I worked in the travel business for a lot, so that's another T because I've got domain expertise in that industry. But I can teach, and I can communicate, and I can be persuasive. Okay, that's kind of interesting. But I can write. Okay, so now we've got 4 skills. Yep. But if I combine those 4 skills together, it means that I've got rare and valuable skills. So when I come to people talking to me about jobs, I go and say, I'm an expert in this, I'm an expert in this, and I'm an expert in this. And it kind of solves the situation because they're kind of going, oh, right, okay. This guy can speak about this thing fluently. And you might go and say, well, Colin, that's, you know, you've been working for years. Yes, that's true. But these tools and tech, what's the problem? These older folks don't know how to work them. This is where you step in. You've got a marketing background and you can use the tools. Marketing background and you can use the tools and you can go now, hey, I'm a bloody Facebook expert. I'm a Google AdWords expert. I can write. Oh, suddenly 3 different skills. Oh, and I set up my e-commerce shop selling socks and face masks. Oh, okay. This is how you stand out. This is how you get the job that you want. Yeah, you walk in, I've got skills. You don't walk in being, you're a meaningful specific rather than a wandering generic. Yeah. So essentially, what you do is you build out what I call a personal monopoly. A personal monopoly is a unique intersection of skills, interests, and personality traits that make you one of a kind. I worked harder in the travel business because I was obsessed with it. I worked harder in the music business because I was obsessed with it. Yeah. So you find a thing you're interested in, you combine it with skills, you combine it with an opportunity mindset, and you're golden. That's what we're trying to do here, guys. Now, before I wrap up on my final thing, any questions on that? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because this is the bit. Skill stacking. Get skills. Go out the door on your resume. I am skilled in this. Yeah. I want to wrap up on one simple idea, and then we go to questions. So you may or may not be history buffs. I'm a bit of a history fan, and you've probably heard the word Renaissance. And the first Renaissance was actually in 2nd century BC. It was in Greece, and it was where the dawn of democracy is. And you can see from that building there in Athens, many of our buildings are still built, even in the US, on that kind of historic sort of Corinthian style. And the first Renaissance was only for people who lived in Athens. It was only for men. It wasn't for anybody else. There's maybe 1,000 people could take part in this first Renaissance. And the second Renaissance occurred around the 15th century, 3rd, 4th, 14th, 15th century, and it was in Florence, it was in Venice, and maybe 1 or 2 other cities. Again, it was only for men. It was for a certain type of wealthy individuals, and it's for the church. That was the second Renaissance, and that's what we kind of call the Renaissance. We hark back to that time when we kind of pulled out of the Dark Ages. But I am going to tell you something different. I'm telling you that today, this is the third Renaissance. This is the third Renaissance right now, because anybody with access to the internet, anybody with a mobile phone, whether they're in Zimbabwe or Zanzibar or Philadelphia, has access to a 4G network, has access to a Shopify website, has access to a cheap tool. Everybody here, it's now 9 o'clock my time, you could all be live on Shopify with your own e-commerce store by 9:30. Yep, that's never happened in the history of humanity. Anybody with access to the internet owns their own factory and owns their own printing press, because the blog is the printing press that, that came from 1472 all over again. So folks, with that, I'm going to wrap up. What I want to tell you is it is the best time to be pursuing a career in marketing. It is the best time to be alive, period, because we are in the third great Renaissance and you have so much opportunity ahead of you. I really wish you well. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Colin. So where's the questions, everybody? Come on, undo those microphones and throw them up there, because you know you're going to get called on if you don't. Who has a question for Colin? Oh boy, come on.
I have a question.
Thank you, because Colin, I was going to have you start calling out names. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi,
so in what ways do you keep up with marketing trends on the day-to-day?
It's a great question. I actually want to do, sometimes I just blank it out because I'm like, it's coming at me too fast, okay? But I sign up to a couple of newsletters and I read those newsletters at the top end. But then I have a second thing I'm doing on what I call skills. And I'm trying to really understand that mental, physical availability stuff, marketing effectiveness. And I actively chase out marketing effective stuff. And I actively chase out material around e-commerce and what's happening in e-commerce. So I look on LinkedIn with the people I follow on LinkedIn. I look on Twitter, and I have 3 or 4 go-to names. Now, remember I talked about the T-shaped person. The T-shaped person I am is e-consultancy, e-commerce, writing, and what do you call it? Careers a little bit, but e-commerce, and marketing effectiveness. So I kind of look out for those and I kind of discount some of the rest. So I double down on the thing I'm already good at. I'm sort of like, if I play the piano, I would look for 3 or 4, people who write the same music and just do that even better, but with a wider view in case I'm missing anything. Yeah. So I hope that answered, Kelly.
Thank you.
Good question. Who's next?
I have a question.
Hey, Kathleen.
What advice would you have for someone that wants to work internationally, like in the future, like post-COVID, based on your experiences?
So the first protocol is you have to work for a US company who has got international offices. Okay. So yeah, sure. We'd all like to work for Google, Facebook, and what have you. Okay. But there's a whole generation of other companies coming through, both in Silicon Valley, Boston, even New York, kind of media companies, tech companies, SaaS companies, and e-commerce companies. And they want to scale into Europe. Their venture capitalists told them to do it. They'd be the winners I'd be going after. And the bit, remember I talked about opportunity? How do you get something you want? So I'm going to use my very bad, cheesy dating analogies, okay? And I use it because obviously I'm a bloke, so I can say, if somebody's, how do I get a girl to go out with me? The correct answer is, besides Tinder, obviously, the correct answer is you ask her out. Yeah, yeah. So it's the same for you, Kathleen. How do I get a job internationally? You go to the company, you find the right company, and you tell them, I want to work internationally. And then 6 months later, you tell them, I want to work internationally. And you apply till eventually you wear them down. Yeah. What happens is don't be an idiot like I was and assume it's going to turn on my door. You know, a supermodel is going to drive up to my front door of my mother's house and say, Colin, do you want to come out on a date? The world doesn't work like that. You ask, you be specific and you ask. You remember opportunity. Nicholas Nassim Taleb, you ask. Find a company, get in, do a great job, do whatever they tell you, ask.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, who's next? All right, Colin, call on somebody. We got to wake them up.
Okay, James Tatum, wake up.
Question.
Does it have to be related specifically to marketing?
No, you can ask me, who my stylist is. I don't mind.
I just wanted to know, of the cities that you've traveled to, which has been your favorite?
It's a very easy answer. Rio de Janeiro.
Why Rio? I've heard it's one of the most dangerous cities in the world.
Yeah, but if you're rough and brave and tough like me, nobody attacks you. No, it's one of the best cities. So first of all, don't believe anything in the papers, anywhere, anytime, any place. It's all bullshit. Okay, I grew up in Ireland in the 1980s. There was a proxy war with the IRA going on, and people wouldn't visit Ireland because they're going to get shot. I was like, that's 60 miles away. Yeah, it's the same in Rio. I did get pickpocketed, and I got bribed. The police tried to bribe me as well. So yeah, it happens. I got robbed in Bolivia, La Paz as well. So it's fine. Yeah.
All right, who's next? Who's next? We don't want to forget our picture of the thumbs up, Colin. So
yeah, shit, yeah. I need to. Yeah. Okay, I need everybody on the screen, but I don't know what happened here. Hold on a second. You've all disappeared. I don't know what happened to me here.
Hold on. Wait,
I need to get the viewer. I need to get the viewer. I need to get the gallery. I got it. Okay, cool.
Got it?
Yeah. Now, everybody's got to do that. You've got to point to the camera like that and go, give me your angry face, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. Right, that's going to be on Twitter tomorrow. So, any other questions, guys? I'm gonna Issa, you're the only one wearing. No, there's 2 people wearing hats. So people wearing hats are going to get asked a question. Issa, question for me.
Come on, we got.
Yeah. So on your slide that you were talking about, the 4 metrics, I guess. So I know that's obviously situational. Do you think there's any that would stick out to you in general to add on to them?
Which metrics was I talking about here now? Oh, revenue, profit margin, customer value. Oh yeah, no, there's a ton of them, but that was just random ones I came up. You have to know the company objectives. And ideally, let's say we were talking about AdWords or whatever. You say, well, listen, we're creating this AdWords campaign. What it's doing is driving customer acquisition. We're currently spending around $10 to get 20 years of revenue. Current rate of progress is going to show $100,000 dollars worth of revenue, which I believe is about 10% of the total revenue target for the year, which is different to, well, we got a CPC currently. Our CPC is going down. I'm not so sure what's going to happen in the future, but we could do that. They don't want to hear that. It's delivering this, percentage of this. Here's how we can improve and disimprove. One of the things I found really weird when I worked on boards is that all the work that I did was essentially end up being one line in a report after hour 3. So good question, Issa. Jess, am I right? You're wearing a hat. So you gotta get asked a question. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. What's like the #1 most recommended book that you recommend for us to read? I know you mentioned like the Cal Newport one earlier.
Yeah, I would read the Cal Newport one because we all, and including me, we all need sometimes a bit of a cold shower. And we need to kind of just go and say, this is the real world. I'm telling you, Colin Newport's view in the world is one of the smarter ones for how you can approach it, okay? In terms of marketing, I would read Positioning, because positioning is the hidden story. And I'll give you an example. I use cars, as you know, as my example, but positioning is the hidden story. Positioning tells you why Pepsi is never going to take over Coke. Positioning tells you why 7-Up is a different part of your mind. Positioning tells you why Cadillac has gone down in a brand compared to BMW. Yeah, it's all in the positioning. And it's kind of like a hidden language. It's kind of old school, it's 1980s, but I'm telling you, positioning is the lens of which is what's going on in the world. The world is full of hierarchies, and positioning is about hierarchy. The world is a hierarchy game. So it's a great question, Jess. Final question, because I'm conscious that you guys might be wrapping up.
Oh, you did say to remind you about persuasion. I don't know if you'll remember.
Oh, yeah, sorry, persuasion, yeah. One final point is this. So within these T-shaped skills I'm talking about, yeah, we'll call it, for want of a better phrase, the art of persuasion is part of those skills. The ability to communicate. Now I'm hamming it up. Okay, so I'm going to ham it up for you right now, okay? The ability to communicate clearly, concisely, and with words that can convince people to understand you. Now, what did I do there? 4 C's, gaps, evocative words. Yeah, I just did it in like 10 words there. I'm using a persuasive way of communicating. I'm talking in sentences that enable you to understand what I'm saying. And I'm drawing hand gestures to help you think these things through. Yeah, I hammed it up. So one of the things to do is, particularly in your entry-level career, is you want to be learning, we'll call it the art of selling, the art of persuasion. Now you have got a great example in your past 2 American presidents in the US. Both were great persuaders. Both were great communicators. Regardless of what you think of them as individuals, what you need to do is go and say, what can I find out what was going on? They were great persuaders. And the world lives on selling and persuasion, as you have found out. So you need to be able to get your ideas across. There's a lot more available to you career-wise and financially if you understand how to persuade.
And there's also some good books on it as well.
Some great, amazing books on it. Yeah. Read Robert Cialdini's book is amazing on that. Robert Cialdini's book, it's
being updated in the spring. So
is it? Okay, great.
He's doing a new version.
Cialdini's book has the 6 weapons of influence. Okay. I want that to be tattooed inside your eyeballs. Okay. I want you to be talking to your mother over the dinner table and be thinking, Robert Cialdini's 6 weapons of influence. Okay. And one I always use, I used it as recently as the other day. one of the weapons of influence. What's the one thing you want most in the world? The thing you can't have. Yeah, scarcity. So scarcity is a great thing to use. Scarcity, liking, commitment to consistency. The 6 weapons of influence, they're everywhere, but it's like a hidden language and you can't see it. And so I teach a lot of marketers, and the amount of people who I go and say, Robert Cialdini, 6 weapons of influence, and they're like, so that's a superpower you can have once you know those 6 weapons of influence.
Well, I want to say thank you so much, Colin, for volunteering your time, giving that up to help all our students get a good handle on marketing, career success. This has been fantastic. By the way, Eat Your Greens is our new textbook. We just finished up our first, and we move on to Eat Your Greens next. So they'll know, in fact, one of the modules, we have an interview with Weimer, which was conducted over during Thanksgiving break. So they'll get to hear about the book from him.
Weimer's great. He's great, and he will talk to you about the banana. He's the real deal. He's better than me. Listen to this guy. He's amazing. As well as JP's going to come back. So the manifesto, we're going to get it out to everybody so you can read it. JP has approved me to distribute it to all of you. So you'll read it in advance. And Colin wrote the introduction. Yeah, it's tough going, guys. Take a break and read bits of it and then tune it in. It's very much advanced stuff. But just tune in, Don't beat yourself up if you don't understand. The more you got going for you. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody. Thank Colin as well. Wave goodbye and have a great night. Thank you. Thanks, guys. You're a star. Cheers. Thanks a lot, mate. All the best.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. I have a meeting when this is done. Oh, right. Can you see me? Can you hear me? I think it's just you and me.
Yeah, I can. It's just a quick question. So for the career readiness memo, like how you have the outline and everything's bolded in the syllabus, are we just like simply filling in, or do you want like long, like? No, gosh, no. I mean, it's really a tool for you, not me. Okay, I mean, and then especially after what you just heard this week and last week, you ought to have a whole different view about your career based on what you heard today and last week from the 2 Irish fellows that we had in here. Mm-hmm. So all I want is you to put this paper together and carry it with you when you leave here as a reminder, and you'll make changes to it. But if you don't plan your life, it'll never happen. That's why I do it. Yeah. Every semester I've had students that were forced to do a LinkedIn profile because they didn't have one. Yeah. That's insane. I was in a strategy class a week ago, and there was a guy in there that didn't have a LinkedIn profile. So 10 people in the class all jumped up. Are you kidding me? Yeah. So it's short, sweet, and to the point. Don't worry about long-winded. It just, again, it's more for you than me. That's what I thought. Yeah, because I just went on my LinkedIn. I had one from Professor Cohen's class, consumer behavior. So I already had it, but I don't have a picture just because I never got like a headshot. But I was just going to fill out like the memo just because I already do have a job ready for me. Beautiful for you. Lucky you. Where are you working? I'm actually working there right now. I got the job. So my minor was HR, and they somehow got in cahoots with my advisor, but it's out of Sarasota, Florida. And since my minor is HR, I was like, oh, okay, like I'll try that out because I also have a minor in business law. Okay, wow. I'm going to law school this fall. Oh my God. Yeah. So I was going to set up the memo. Like I already have, like I'm a corporate recruiter. So I do the resumes, Okay. Awesome. You're ahead of the class, girl. Yeah. Yeah, I just was making sure I was doing everything right. But yeah, they offered me full employment once I graduate in May. Whew. You're so lucky, man. A lot of the students, I got students that graduated 2 years ago that are still struggling. Yeah, a lot of my friends are having really hard times right now. And I feel like something just wonderful fell into my lap, or else I would be in the same case. Well, be thankful. Oh, I'm very thankful. All right, cool. Well, do you have any other questions? I think I do have some grading of stuff that you've sent in. I'll do that all over the break. Yeah, I think it's just the first memo, and I just handed in the third memo just a little bit ago. So. Okay, cool. All right, cool. Awesome. All right, well then, get out there and enjoy the sun, man. Don't stay anymore on the stupid
Zoom screens. I hope you're done for the day, right?
Yep, I'm done for the day now.
All right, especially since you got a job. Go have fun.
Thank you.
All right, see you later. Bye-bye.